Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to come out to our Week 10 general meeting. Let's have a little dance. We've made it through this quarter. We're hanging on. We're preparing for finals. It's a great time. And today I'm going to have the privilege of presenting with our dear President, Jenny, and our Ambassador, Tyler. So let's get started.
Hi, everyone. Like I said, my name is Jenny, and this week we have a pharmacy topic of the week. So I'll just briefly be talking about the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine. I'm sure many of you have already heard of this, if not all of you, but I just wanted to share some things that you may not know about it. So this vaccine has been authorized for emergency use like the other two, the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine. And something that makes this unique is that only one dose is required, unlike the other two which require 2 doses. And this is 72% effective in a study that was done in the US population. And the others, just for comparison, is 95% effective for the Pfizer vaccine, and then Moderna is 94% effective. And you have to be at least 18 years old in order to get this vaccine, which is similar to the other ones. And they plan to distribute 100 million doses by June. And this vaccine is an inactivated adenovirus, so it can no longer replicate, but it is a bit different because the other two vaccines are an mRNA vaccine. And in regard to storage, it can be stored at regular refrigerator temperatures. So it's stable for 3 months at 36 to 46 degrees Fahrenheit, which is great because it's less stringent than the others. So we would like to thank you all for coming out to our Week 9 general meeting. So we presented about our board positions, and we really hope that if you are interested in learning more about our positions or interested in applying to be a board member, that you can reach out to the board members and shadow them if you are interested in learning more. We would also like to thank you for coming out to our CHA4T fundraiser. Your support means a lot to us, and it's really even more important to us right now when it's hard for us to have any typical fundraisers that we usually have, like when we sell banh mi or boba in person on Ring Road. So we really appreciate those of you that come out to our fundraisers just to pick up some boba. Thank you.
I would first really like to congratulate Dana and Christine on their hard work. You guys had a very, very successful and fun Roseman Pharmacy School Mixer, so thank you so much for taking the time to organize that. And for those who came to the mixer, we really hope that you were able to enjoy and learn a lot about Roseman University and just, had a great time, form some connections. So thank you again, you guys, for creating the event, and also thank you to those who attended.
Hello, like I mentioned, I'm Tyler, I'm your ambassador, and I'm here to talk about some upcoming events that we have. So we're hosting a PPS at UCI and UCSD joint TFT tournament, and this is to be scheduled Sunday of spring break. Where's this? So this will happen over Discord as well as the League of Legends client. And why should you join? Well, I think it's a great way to meet some people that you typically wouldn't see in our PPS and kind of expand your horizons and to see your pre-pharmacy peers. If you are interested, fill out this registration form by this Sunday. And if you have any questions or comments, please contact the VP of PPS at UCSD, Melvin, at his email here. Okay, another big trip that we have, or upcoming event that we have, is a NorCal trip. And this is also going to take place over spring break over the course of 2 days. Where will this take place? This will be sent to as a Zoom link to those who sign up. And why should you join? I think this is a great way to not only bond with PPS members, but learn about a bunch of different pharmacy schools that we typically wouldn't hear during our general meetings as they are further away. I know personally, this is one of the big trips as to why I applied for a board. I think it's a really great opportunity for everyone. So if you are interested, please fill out this registration form by next Friday. Something a little different this year that we're doing online is having a raffle and prizes. So please be on the lookout for that. And if you have any questions or concerns, please contact our internal VP, Allie, at her email here.
Now we'll be having our external vice president, Dana, speak about an upcoming event we have.
Hi guys, so if you weren't able to make it to the Roseman Mixer, we are having another mixer with UCSD's Pharmacy School. This is going to be on Saturday, April 10th, and that is going to be week 2 of spring quarter. And it's from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Zoom. And it's an awesome opportunity to learn more about UCSD's PharmD program, network with their faculty members and current pharmacy students there. We also have 2 UCI alumni coming, Kenneth Taw and Stephen Chen, if you know them. And we're also going to be playing some fun games, and there is going to be a raffle for the attendees. And this is a great opportunity for you to just really get to know UCSD more, because we typically don't have these events with them. So if you're interested in going to the mixer, please fill out the registration form, and the deadline for the form is going to be on Wednesday, April 7th at 11:59 p.m. and paid members will get a stamp for attending. So if you have any questions about the mixer, feel free to contact me at my email below. Thank you.
Okay, first I just want to say thank you everyone who have purchased our Jamba Juice buy one get one free cards. They're really a great way to support our organization. For those of you who aren't aware, we're selling Jamba Juice buy one get one free cards for $10 per card, and this is good for up to 6 drinks, which is a $35 value. I think this is a great way to support our club as well as get some delicious smoothies along the way. So if you have any questions, please contact our fundraising chair, Brian, at his email down there. And lastly, talking about the PPS UCI end of the year package, what we plan to include is our custom keychain, personal letter, pill bottle with treats and stickers, and much more. If you are interested in this end of the year package, please fill out this interest form if you want to purchase one. And if you have any questions, again, contact our fundraising chair, Ryan, at his email below.
And guys, please stay connected with us through our various social media websites. And we actually also have a Discord in which you're able to, attend a study room, and we have Instagram and a collaborative playlist if you'd like to contribute. So there are a lot of avenues in which you can get more involved and be informed about upcoming PPS events. And so thank you so much. And now to welcome our lovely guest speakers, Dr. Ken Wong and Ms. Michelle Ton.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you so much. Definitely Michelle is lovely. I'm not as lovely as her, but I appreciate the adjectives there. First of all, I just want to say, I want to join your club. I don't,
Yeah, me too.
We've actually presented in a number of clubs, and I would certainly put your club at near the top, if not at the top. You guys sound like a fun group. I'm sorry I missed out on the boba, and as well as I would love to take advantage of that Jamba gift card opportunity as well. But you guys seems that you guys are so well organized and put on some great events. So kudos to you folks for sure.
Yeah, if you guys could send the link in the chat for the Jamba Juice card, I'd love to buy and support. Support your club. I bought donuts at that last club, so yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to switch. I think that comes across okay. So, hello everyone. I was going to say welcome everyone because that's all we usually do in our program, but we're actually visiting here. Thank you so much for having us at your club meeting this evening. And I'm going to be talking about trends in the pharmaceutical industry, as well as career opportunities in the pharmaceutical industry. Hopefully there are some of you who are interested or curious about the pharmaceutical industry. So, first of all, let me introduce myself as well as my colleague, Michelle Ton. Michelle is actually the academic program administrator of academics and student affairs. She's also our admissions administrator. My name is Ken Wong. I'm the program director of the Healthcare Decision Analysis and Program and the Biopharmaceutical Marketing Program. They're both graduate programs at the USC School of Pharmacy. I'm also an associate professor in the Department of Pharmaceutical and Health Economics. All of these are within the USC School of Pharmacy. So we're all employees of the USC School of Pharmacy. And as I mentioned, today I'm going to be talking about pharmaceutical trends and its impact on your potential future careers in the pharmaceutical industry. But really, if you think about it, with all these new innovations we're talking about, these new innovations are going to have an impact, whether you join the industry or not. It's going to have an impact on your pharmacy practice, whether you are in hospital, clinical, ambulatory care practice. All of this is going to have a huge impact on that. So hopefully when you listen to this presentation, you take that into account and you look at it through that lens. You know, whether it's a career in the pharmaceutical industry, but really as a pharmacist practitioner, that you'll be looking at it from that standpoint. A little bit about me. I've been at USC for the last 2 years. I was in the pharmaceutical industry for over 18 years, primarily with Novartis Pharmaceuticals, Novartis Oncology, where I was in health economics and outcomes research. I know there's probably some of you who are interested in that arena. I was also in market access for a number of years at that company. Prior to that, I was in managed care insurance, where I worked at Cigna, HealthNet, as well as a number of other organizations in managed care pharmacy. I also served as a Joint Commission surveyor. The Joint Commission is responsible for accrediting hospitals and different healthcare practices. So I evaluated for pharmaceutical and quality care standards. So I've had a wonderful career, and all of it, I can tell you, I owe it to my degree in pharmacy. I went to the USC School of Pharmacy many eons ago, and I can certainly tell you that I owe many of the things that I was able to do and accomplish through certainly hard work, but it was because of my training and the resultant opportunities that I had because I was able to go to a school of pharmacy and earn my PharmD. So I am here to talk about the pharmaceutical industry, but again, make sure you look at it through a different lens. It's going to have a different impact in many ways. But for those who are interested in the pharmaceutical industry, these are the headlines you see. You know, a lot of people look at the pharmaceutical industry, we talk about it through different lenses. Many people look at the pharmaceutical industry when they read headlines, right? We hear about high prices. We hear about these drugs that cost millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. And when you look at health policy, when you look at legislation, when you look at political speeches, this is what you hear about, right? High prices, soaring prices. Now, why is that the case? I think certainly you guys had a J&J update. I think that the vaccines has sort of brought back the focus as to the value of the pharmaceutical industry, as to when we start talking about innovations, you know, that light bulb goes on above people's heads as to, well, this is why we have the pharmaceutical industry. This is why they're so valuable to healthcare. It's that innovation, right? It's that it's the ability to bring these miracle drugs, and we are certainly seeing miracle drugs nowadays. We're seeing these miracle drugs being brought to market and having such a huge impact on people's lives. And COVID, I think, has brought that back. But we will see a pivot very soon back in Washington with respect to managing and controlling these high prices. But why do we see these high prices? And many of you may have your own opinion on things, and they're probably right, or they're partially right. But it is the result of a lot of different factors. And I'd like to bring that back to a couple things. Is why do drugs cost so much? You've heard developmental drug costs range anywhere from $800 million to $2 billion in developmental costs. But are we really saying that every drug costs that much to develop, right? And you probably have read stories where actually some drugs don't cost that much. Matter of fact, some of these drugs are purchased from developers who benefited from NIH grants or government grants And then you've heard about other drugs which were brought all the way through by a pharmaceutical company. So when we talk about really $800 million to $2 billion, it's really in average, or take into account all these other factors. Another thing that people don't take into account is that typically, in order to get one FDA drug approved, a company will typically have to go through 5,000 to 10,000 compounds, taking it through discovery. You know, which of those compounds make it through drug discovery, and then make it to some type of preclinical, silico, animal type of research. From there, we typically may, on average, see 5 of those drugs make it to actually a clinical phase trial. And from there, only 1 drug make it into an FDA approval. The question to you that you need to consider is those 5,000 to 10,000 compounds, those 250 compounds, 5 compounds, who pays for that? They never make it to market, right? There's an actual cost to developing drugs that never make it to market. So that's one thing to consider when you think about why does it cost so much? And you see these quotes of $800 million, $2 billion per drug, because what companies are taking into account are the sunken costs, the sunken loss of these other compounds and drugs to be that never make it to market, but someone has to pay for the millions of dollars and billions of dollars sometimes in the development of these drugs. Secondly, these drugs have limited patent life. As you know, patents are about 20 years. In pharma, these patents may be extended an extra 5 years. But by the time these drugs, that one drug hits the market, that drug may only have a patent life of anywhere from 3 to maybe 10 years. And it's during that period, a pharmaceutical company is able to make back their investment, not just on that drug, but on these other 5,000 to 10,000 compounds, 250 compounds, 5 compounds that didn't make it, right? They have to make back their investment plus report a profit. So what does that equate to? Usually a high list price for their drug, okay? Certainly there are issues where you may see some issues of price gouging, like what you saw with some stories over the last couple of years where you had some bad actors out there, some bad acting companies charge higher prices, taking advantage of the market. And those companies don't even develop drugs. They just took this drug that off the shelf that wasn't used, found a new indication for it, and charged this enormous price. Certainly we have those cases, but what you typically will see from a pricing standpoint is this factor, the developmental costs. Developmental costs are just so high. And by the way, feel free to interrupt me if you have questions as we go along. I'm used to that. Okay, here's an example. Gilead spent $5 billion on this small company called Galapagos. They bought them for $5 billion in hopes of that their drugs in the pipeline was going to result in potential blockbusters in the future. Well, after they bought them, these drugs went into phase 3 and they flopped. Okay, and as you know, phase 3 studies, they can cost anywhere from tens of millions of dollars to hundreds of millions of dollars in developmental costs. On top of that, Gilead shelled out $5 billion to buy this company. Now, what's happened? Well, these drugs, they flopped, as I mentioned. These drugs will never see the light of day, right? There are still other drugs in their pipeline, but the most promising drugs that they spent the $5 billion on are not going to be approved. Who pays for that? Well, the pharmaceutical company did, right? They're going to pay for it in losses, okay? And those losses are going to be passed along to those drugs that are approved by Gilead, and they're going to try to make up that cost with the price of the drug that does end up getting approved. So another thing that's unique about the pharmaceutical industry is that it's the most specialized and regulated business in the world. So for those of you who are interested in going into the pharmaceutical industry, you are going into a very specialized industry, and it's a good thing, okay? For example, you could work for Coca-Cola, you could work for Apple, right? There's no barrier to entry other than knowledge, of course, right? But there's no barrier to entry in there. And what I mean by that is the pharmaceutical industry requires a specialized knowledge of how insurance works, how reimbursement works, the regulations and around what you can communicate to physicians, the pharmacists. Is very regulated and specialized. And in order to operate in this space, you have to understand that. You have to learn what that is. And you have to operate within these very specialized guidelines, as opposed to going to buying a laptop or an iPhone at Apple. You just go in there and you just plop down, and it's based upon your willingness to pay, right? Between the consumer and the Apple store. Well, in healthcare, most patients only pay a copay. It's an insurance company, a third-party payer who does that. So all those dynamics go into a very different and specialized industry. And as I mentioned, it's very regulated. So for those who are interested in going into the pharmaceutical industry, you are protected in some manners, but also you are highly valued because of your highly specialized skills and knowledge around the pharmaceutical industry and your ability to operate within the regulated parameters of that industry. So with that background, I'd like to talk about these upcoming trends in the pharmaceutical industry that's just going to impact your practice in the industry as well as practitioners. And it's really brought on by the understanding of the human genome. We know that we've had it mapped out for the last 15 years. It's had a dramatic impact in drug development, product development, patient care. We know data and decision analysis, our ability to utilize data and to leverage that data in patient practice, but also in clinical development, product development, has had a dramatic impact. Artificial intelligence is only in its infancy with respect to its utilization and practical use in practices, but even that is having a dramatic impact on things. And people can already see through our AI, machine learning, the dramatic impact it's going to have in the pharmaceutical industry, but also in pharmacy practice. So with that second layer of background, I'm going to talk specifically around curative therapies, precision, customized therapies, digital therapeutics, and how pharmaceutical companies are beginning to view themselves as data companies. It's pretty interesting, right? So I'm going to talk about some of the 4 specific things in this area with respect to trends in the pharmaceutical industry. Curative therapies. I mean, you guys are coming into a practice where you guys are hearing and learning about these curative therapies. To me, who has been in practice for 30 plus years, it blows my mind now, right? And I've worked for some of these companies who have come up with these curative therapies. It's just really incredible, guys. But now we're talking about, for example, hepatitis C. In my years, 25% of these people who had hepatitis C ended up dying of cancer or cirrhosis, before they lived a full life. Now we're talking about hepatitis C just being a chronic disease. The same thing with cancer. We have chronic myelogenous leukemia. I worked for a company that Novartis, that developed the first targeted drug that turned CML, which was really a death sentence. We turned it into a cancer that's a chronic disease. You know, I want to pause there because you know, this is the world that you guys are growing up in, but it just blows. I mentioned it just blows my mind that we can call a particular cancer a chronic disease, and we're going to be seeing more and more of that. Right? These curative therapies, it's just amazing. We're going to see hemophilia be a chronic disease that people just manage, and people are going to live a full life. So this is awesome, right? Curative therapies, people are actually going to be cured. That's why we're in medicine. This is why you guys are going into pharmacy, right? Game-changing innovations. But then, boy, you know, reality hits. How do you pay for it, right? We're talking about these huge innovations, high cost of development, and all the other things that go with that. How do you pay for it? And then the next question is, how do you evaluate it? And how do you know whether it's worth the price? So whether you're in the pharmaceutical industry or you go into pharmacy practice, these are questions you're going to be asking. You know, you're going to be telling a patient about this treatment, and you're going to be saying it costs 6 figures, right? Hopefully your insurance company pays for most of it, right? There is going to be some type of decision that you're going to have to make, whether this patient gets this drug or that patient gets that drug. It's just the reality of it. So you're going to have to be making decisions. You're going to be developing guidelines, algorithms to determine who gets these particular drugs. And it's going to be those drugs where it's going to be most impactful, right? From a pharmaceutical company manufacturer standpoint, we understand that. So we're going to be developing evidence. We're going to be developing education materials. We're going to be developing models to help inform practitioners, such as those who are going to practice, of that. And then for those of you who are going to be in the pharmaceutical industry, that's what you're going to be involved in. You're going to be developing models and creating research and evidence to demonstrate the value of your drug. It goes both ways. So, you know, 20, 30 years ago, we weren't thinking this way, but this is how you're going to be thinking in the future. Here's an example. So Jamba, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this drug. This was actually a Novartis drug. We bought a company that made this. So Jamba is a gene therapy integrated for treatment of pediatric patients less than 2 years of age with this gene mutation of the spinal that causes spinal muscular atrophy. It's a single dose intravenous infusion. Okay, it costs $2.1 million. How many of you guys have $2.1 million to pay for this? Not many of us do. Maybe one of you guys do. There's a lot of you out there, maybe. I know I don't. It's $2.125 million. Okay, take into consideration, it's a single dose though, so that's a good thing, but $2.1 million. Is it worth the price? Okay, keep in mind, this disease, most kids, by the time they're 18 months, either die of their affliction, or they're incredibly deformed, where they're unable to live a full life. Okay, so the other question, is it worth the price? The other price is, how can you not afford not to provide this drug, right? So let's put it into perspective. This drug costs $2.125 million. There was already a drug on the market called Spinraza, which costs $750,000 for the first year, and then $375,000 for every year after, for about 6-7 years. This drug was approved and being paid for by insurers already. All right. So when Novartis comes out with their drug, and priced at $2.125 million for one dose, it's not surprising how they based the price on this, right? When you look at what's available. But then you look at the alternative, usual care without any treatment. For the average cost, is, remember, not everyone has the most severe disease. The average cost for treating a patient like this, which again has high mortality, The average healthcare cost was $137,000 per year. And extend that over a lifetime, right? So when you do that, the $2.125 million doesn't sound that expensive anymore, right? So again, whether you're on the manufacturer side or you're on the practitioner side, you're going to have to be making decisions. You're going to have the evidence for this. You're going to have to see the models. You're going to have to actually take all this information and then decide whether, if you're an insurance company, whether to cover this drug, whether to offer this drug, and then on the other end, from an ethical side, decide how can you not offer this drug. Okay, practice is completely different, guys, when we talk about drugs like this. So precision and customized therapies. Some of you some of you may already be familiar with CART therapies, chimeric antigen receptor T cell therapies. Some of you have heard of this, some of you have not. I just want to go through this because this concept of pharmacy is very, when you start talking about CART therapy, it fits outside of the box, all right? So let me talk a little bit about what CART therapy is. CART therapy is a customized therapy that's being used primarily right now for cancer patients. And essentially is you're taking a patient's T cells, you're taking blood out of a patient, you're taking the T cells out of that blood, you're circulating the rest of the blood back to the patient, but you're taking the T cells of a patient, all right? For those of you who understand cancer, typically you have your own immune system will seek out and destroy mutated or foreign cells in your body. But cancer cells are smart, they're tricky, right? They know how to avoid your immune system like T cells. And that's how cancer, in a very simplistic manner, grows and takes over and ends up in sad outcomes for patients. So what CAR T therapy does is it takes these T cells, as I mentioned, we take these T cells out of patients, and what we do is we weaponize these T cells. We transduce these T cells with DNA, with viruses that transduce these T cells into creating these chimeric antigen receptor T cells that are specific to cancer cells, okay? So you transduce these T cells, all of a sudden you have these chimeric antigen T cell receptors that are specific to, for example, CD19 proteins that we find in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma or in acute myelogenous leukemia. So now when a T cell sees these cancer cells, they will attack these cancer cells, right? That's the theory around that. So we get these T cells, we weaponize it via these transductions with these virus cells that introduce the DNA into these T cells. These receptors are created. We put it into a bioprocessing system where we duplicate and make millions of these modified T cells. We expand it. We then bring it back, and what you see in that IV bag, there is millions of T cells that have been modified to include these chimeric antigen receptor T cells, okay? So my question to you guys is that a drug? Is that a pharmaceutical product? Right? I mean, it's T cells that have been modified to have these receptors, and now we are going to be infusing these T cells, modified T cells, back into a patient. Is that a drug? Right? According to the FDA, it is, because this drug, quote unquote, has been approved by the FDA. If you look closely at that IV bag, it has an NDC number on it, right? A national drug code. all right? Pharmacy practice, right? This is totally different, right? We're talking about tailored therapies to treat individual patients. Again, paradigm completely different. So how does this change the pharma business model? So growing up in pharmacy, you know, you could develop a drug for cholesterol like Lipitor. 38 million people take these statin drugs, right, for cholesterol. The lifetime sales for Lipitor is $160 billion. It's crazy money, right? Right? And you just develop this pill. And it had like 10, 12 competitors, for right? Same thing for these hypertension drugs. 41 million people take these drugs, and there's a bunch of competitors. Well, now we're talking about drugs that are being developed that are for maybe 10,000 people in a year, thousands of people, maybe hundreds of people, and they're individualized per patient. And for the CAR T cells, they cost about $200,000 to make. How do you price that? How does a drug company get their money back, make their money back for that? Because now we're not only talking about a very expensive drug to develop, but we're talking about tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of people. So it's not surprising when you think about these drugs that cost $1 million, $2 million, hundreds of thousands of dollars per year, because a pharmaceutical company manufacturer has to make their money back, right? In order to innovate for other drugs, to create and do R&D on new drugs in the future. They have to make their money back. But this completely changes the pharma business model, right? Again, you know, when I was going to pharmacy school, and not just maybe a decade ago, and we'll still have pills, of course, and injectables, of course, that aren't, you know, so orphan or rare disease-like. But we're going to be seeing this. And it is currently changing the pharma business model, and will continually change the business model in the future. And this is the pharma business and pharmacy practice that you guys will be going into.
Hey, Ken, we got about 15 minutes left before the Q&A session. So just wanted to pass that message along. Okay,
very good. Digital therapeutics certainly is going to be changing this dramatically. You know, we're seeing digital therapeutics that are being approved apps by the FDA. No drug related is they're being approved by medical devices. And these devices are being viewed as therapeutic entities that are being used to treat patients, for example, with opioid addiction, right? It's helping them with their addiction. It's also helping asthma patients with their adherence. Pharmaceutical companies don't know what to do with these things because they don't know how to monetize these things. They're not very profitable right now, okay? But in the future, they will be, okay? But it's certainly something, and there may be one of you guys who's going to be an entrepreneur, who's going to develop a business or an app that's going to make millions of dollars, you know, in this area. Why not someone in pharmacy, right? You guys in your PharmD program, you guys are going to be learning, you know, certainly skill sets to be able to take advantage of this. The last thing I have around this is around data science. You know, when we do clinical trials in pharma, you know, we usually take this data, we collect the data, we usually put it on a paper pad, and then we file it in a file cabinet. But these clinical trials that's being done on tens of thousands of patients, millions across different companies. Companies are taking this data, and they are utilizing this data, developing data sets with these data, because what they realize is data is money, and data has to be utilized to enhance how clinical development happens. You know, maybe we're able to lower our developmental costs by having maybe enhanced study populations, a bit better stratifying subjects in order to lower our developmental costs. So Pharma companies currently purchase data from third-party vendors. In the future, you'll see pharma companies selling their data to other pharma companies or perhaps other entities to develop drugs and manage costs. Okay. So I'm going to switch gears right now to a little bit about careers in the industry. So this is what, you know, if you're interested in going into the pharma industry, these are some of the desired skills. And this probably isn't surprising to you. You know, it's people who can think strategically, people who can make take those strategy points and make decisions, people who can network and have people skills, and people who can write and have really strong verbal communications. And then lastly, people who have data quantitative skills. Really the first four, you know, are really important in pharma. And I know that, you know, people who tend to be in the life sciences tend to be more introverts in general, but I can tell you that that shouldn't stop you from going into the pharmaceutical industry. I'm a big introvert, but I know how to turn it on when I need to, like right now, right? You folks can all do it. So if you look at this, I know, and your club is a great example of it. I'm just so impressed by your club, how organized you guys are. If you guys are 3 of the 5 here, there's no reason why you couldn't work in the pharmaceutical industry. If you're 4 out of the 5, you guys are stars. If you guys are 5 out of 5, you guys can be superstars. And if you guys bend and stretch yourselves, I'm sure that you guys can be 5 out of 5 here. It just depends on your ability to go outside of your comfort zone. Okay, just like I've been able to do over my career. I put curiosity in there just because I like curious people. And if you ever interview for me, I look for that. Okay, and I know a lot of other people do. So a little bit about our program. So as I mentioned, I'm the program director of the Master of Science in Biopharmaceutical Marketing and Master of Science in Healthcare Decision Analysis. We are all within the School of Pharmacy. Our people who go to our School of Pharmacy are able to have dual degrees or are able to concurrently take these masters along with them. Many of our students who take our program do so because they are interested in going to the pharmaceutical industry, right? They feel it gives them a leg up in being able to do so. And I'll say on our program, we have PharmD students who are in our program, but we also have students who are just master's students. And both students do very well. But I will also say that our PharmD MS students, because they have that doctorate degree plus an MS, they do well. They tend to be our best students. But we certainly have students who go into our program and do masters only, and they do extremely well as well. So what does our program degree focus on? We focus on what you would guess, those 5 skills that I mentioned. We focus in on product development, market access reimbursement, marketing, advertising, communication. We talk about pricing strategies. We also, you can't get away from working with data and utilizing that data to make good strategic decisions, right? How do you get that data? Sometimes it's not just raw data. Sometimes it's interviewing people. Sometimes it's going to meetings and extracting key information from people you talk to or from presentations that you view, right? Health policy and politics plays a huge part in the pharmaceutical industry. Regulations, legislative talk. This is what our program is focused on, right? Strategic marketing, data decision analysis, and applied health policy. That's the focus of our program. And it is above and beyond what you would see in the PharmD program. Yes, they do touch upon that, but of course, because we're a specialized degree program, we focus in on these areas for those who are interested in going into the pharmaceutical industry, but also for those who are interested in going into managed care, as well as managed care consulting. So our faculty is very unique in that 50% or more of our lectures are given by guest lecturers from Amgen, Gilead, Anthem, Genentech. We think it's very important for you to hear from real world practitioners, right? Also the full-time faculty like myself, we typically tend to be from the pharmaceutical industry as well. So this is our program and how it's set up. We tend to be on the weekends as well as weeknight webinars. That's why the PharmD program can take our classes, because it doesn't run concurrently, right? As I mentioned, we also have straight master students as well. Okay, so we meet on 4 weekends, long weekends, then we have 4 weeknight webinars for each class. So these are potential careers that our students tend to go into. The pharmaceutical industry, they can be going to product development, brand management, market access, marketing, pricing and forecast analysts. We do have people go into managed care as well, because in the pharmaceutical industry, there's 2 sides of the table, right? There's the pharma manufacturer, then there's the other guys that we have to market to. So it's not surprising that we have people who go on the other side of the table. Then we have people who go into healthcare consulting and finance as well. Where are our graduates now? Not surprising, they're in the pharmaceutical industry. They're also in consulting. We have people, as I mentioned, who go into managed care as well. We even have people who go into healthcare finance, who work for investment firms, because they understand the business of healthcare. We look at our program as being sort of a MBA of healthcare. So when you think of our program, think about our program as being more of a business healthcare program. And that's why it's such a good synergy to a PharmD degree as well. Okay. So with that, I will open it up to if there's any questions that you folks might have. And I'll just open it up there. Does anyone have any questions?
Hi, Dr. Wong. First of all,
Yes.
Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And my question is, as someone who's currently very interested in the pharmaceutical industry pathway in terms of my career orientation, I was wondering, what is some advice that you have for students like myself to start kind of developing and orienting ourselves to be able to more successfully integrate into the pharmaceutical industry? So should I start developing my business acumen, or what are some of the steps I could take?
Yeah, I think that those parts I had listed, those 5 desirable areas. I think your ability to network, communicate is just extremely important. And I think right now, when you talk about business acumen, I think that's very important. That business acumen is sometimes it's self-learned, but it's also learned by talking to people and networking with people. So I would really encourage for you folks to exercise and work out that networking and communication muscle now. I would network and reach out, even if it's through LinkedIn, by the way. That's what our students do. They link into strangers and they strike up conversations with people, and they've gotten really good at it, actually. But anytime you folks have speakers, and I know you folks have a lot of guest lecturers at UCI as well, but I would certainly reach out and have a really good structured conversations with these people. Have in mind what you want to ask, what you want to accomplish, so that you can not only learn about the business, but learn about what it takes to be successful in the business, right? And I think that's what you meant by business acumen, but it goes beyond just learning the technical parts of it, but learning what it takes to be successful. Not just what it takes to get there, but what it takes to be successful. And you can only do that by talking and learning with people. I really suggest that you folks identify good mentors. I've had great mentors in my life. I still have mentors that I consider mentors. My success and my advancement in career is identifying those people. And if you ever find a good mentor, latch on to them, and because they'll be your lifelong mentors in life. And those mentors are great mentors in both my business and professional life. Yeah, so networking, communicating, and as much as possible now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wong. And I hope that you don't mind that I have a follow-up question for you.
Yeah.
Yes, and I was wondering, in 8 years, which is when I'll be kind of entering the pharmacy arena, in which I'll be graduating from pharmacy school, where do you see the pharmaceutical industry evolving, and what do you think that the evolution will look like?
Yeah, I think that what, I mean, that's sort of a broad area, but if you're talking about, I mean, in general, you know, what's the pharmaceutical industry going to look like? I think that you're going to see a lot more collaboration between manufacturers and people who make decisions on which drugs are going to be used, right? We do that now, right? But in order for these innovative treatments to be properly used, for them to be manufactured to be properly reimbursed so that they can continue to innovate, it's going to require a lot more transparency that we're seeing right now. Because right now everyone has their own books and they say, all right, this is how much we want. It's not going to work because the prices are too high, the stakes are too high, and it's just not going to work. So I think you're going to see a lot more transparency. You're going to start seeing relationships and ways of how these drugs are going to be paid for. It's going to be more of a collaborative partnership. Okay, so I think you're going to see a lot more of that in the future. You know, a lot of it hedges too on how the insurance industry evolves too. I think we're going to see definitely more, we can see closer to a single payer in this country, you know, in the future. So when you see that natural evolution where you see a single payer, and now, boy, talk about leverage, right? We haven't seen that now, but you see that leverage happening, and now you see this innovation that has to continue, right? So there's no doubt there's going to be more of a collaboration and transparency between these two entities. So yeah, the one thing you don't want to see is a single payer and they say, this is how much we're going to pay and that's it, right? See, some people think that's great, but you're going to see a halt to innovation, and we can't see that, okay? So I think as someone who's going to be practicing in 8 years, I don't know if I'll be here anymore. So you'll actually be taking care of me actually in those 8 years. But someone who's going to be in 8 years, I think you have to understand that. Yeah, right. You're going to have to understand that there's going to have to be more of a collaboration. And what does that mean? That means that there's going to have to be a transparency in evidence. There's going to have to be a demonstration and generation of evidence to demonstrate the value of these products. So you can share that data, right? And you're going to have to be transparent in your methodologies and how that's done. Yeah, I think it's going to be a brave new world in 8 years. It's going to be amazing, but it's going to be a difficult world there because, you know, people are going to protect their territory, but I cannot see a future, whether it be 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, where you don't have that transparent, collaborative relationship between these two entities. There's too much that's at stake.
Thank you so much for such an informative answer, Dr. Wong. I'll definitely take that under advisement and continue to, you know, integrate that into my own beliefs.
Yeah.
Hello, Dr.
Hey, Dr. Wong.
Oh. Dana, you could go first.
Okay, we have a pre-submitted question that a member asked.
Yeah.
So they're asking, assume that the current COVID-19 pandemic is successfully defeated. Do you think that the pharmaceutical industry will focus on drugs against infectious diseases 6 to 10 years later?
I think vaccines certainly, and that's a great question. I don't know if you folks know about the current, and it is a big problem actually around antibiotics and anti-infectives that are, or the lack of them, that are being developed by the pharmaceutical industry. While at the same time, we have these superbugs, these super infections that are occurring, right? There's we just talked about innovation and the danger to innovation. The problem, what we're seeing with antibiotics right now and anti-infectives is that these superbugs or these super infections are happening in a small population of patients, right? And as a result of that, the use of and the need for these antibiotics that are being developed are for these small populations of patients, okay? Pharmaceutical companies that have tried to develop these anti-infectives to treat these superbugs, they have to end up charging tens of thousands of dollars for a course of therapy for these anti-infectives. Remember that business model slide I showed you? Okay. The problem is, I don't know if you guys know what the typical cost for an antibiotic in the hospital. It's like a few dollars, maybe $50, $60. Okay. So when a pharmaceutical company develops this drug, their hope is that they need to make back their investment in these drugs. But because these drugs are only being used in a select few, it's not profitable to develop antibiotics for these cases. Okay, so what you've seen a lot of pharmaceutical companies that had antibiotic pipelines, they've dropped out of the market because they know it's not profitable to do so. Okay, and that's a problem, right? Again, you can say pharmaceutical companies are greedy, but if they're not going to be able to turn a profit, they're not going to invest in it. Okay, so I'm not sure if I'm answering that question directly, because I think you were talking about COVID, and that's an antiviral. But some of these resultant infections, the problem is that investment in the development of these anti-infectives, antibacterials, antivirals will definitely occur if there's a market and if people will pay for it, okay? By the way, the reason why we have all these antivirals now, these anti-vaccines now, not antivirals, anti-vaccines right now, is because there was a $10 billion investment by the government to develop these vaccines. That's why we're seeing all these J&J and Pfizer and Moderna, because there was a investment by the government to do that. If we didn't see that investment, we may not have seen such a quick turnaround. We like to think that Pfizer did this out of their kindest heart, but it came down to an investment to do that. So yeah, unfortunately, it comes down to investment and return. So I think the answer to that question is, yeah, if we start seeing the more variants in the COVIDs, where we need to see continued development in vaccines, yeah, you'll certainly see that, because there's going to be investment by governments and public health to do so. But for that other example where I talked about where you have these rare, superbugs, MRSA, bacterial, there's going to have to be some type of government intervention and investment in order to improve development in that area. It's a big, big problem right now.
Hello, Dr. Wong. Thank
Yeah.
you for your presentation. And sorry, I have one more question.
Yeah.
But I actually had a lot of questions, but for sake of time, I think I should limit to one. I was wondering, as a Pharmacy graduate, is there like a place in your program where we could focus on healthcare equity and like on making medications more accessible to people who say like they don't have as much of an income? Is there like a field in your MPH program?
That's a really good question, especially for your generation in particular, because I see that that comes up with even our students in our program, our PharmD students. You know, a lot of them want to go into the pharmaceutical industry, but there's always that thing about equity and the bioethics of pharmaceutical pricing and patient advocacy. So is there anything that is specific to that? You know, there's bioethics programs out there that are master's programs that are not pharmaceutical or related. So I know of those programs, but I would say, you know, going into the PharmD program or even going into our program, if that's your orientation, I think you can apply what you learn in your PharmD program as well as in a program such as ours towards patient equity, because you understand how it works. You're learning how drugs are priced, right? You know how drugs are reimbursed. So you're not, for example, making demand. I want patient price equity for patients across the board. You may say that, but you are making that based upon from an educated perspective, from an informed perspective, right? But you understand how the pharma industry works. You know how the insurance industry works, and you're able to make an informed decision and an informed claim based upon that. So I don't know if that answers your question. I don't know of a specific program that does that, but I think if you have that orientation into any degree, advanced degree that you learn, I think you can come out of that with that skill set, because you'll be looking to build upon that skill set as you go through a program.
Thank you so much. That helps a lot.
Yeah, and if that is your if that's your desire, you know, I think that's great, and I think that that's something you should certainly pursue, because I don't think there's enough people who look at it from that perspective.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so it is a little bit over the meeting, but we had really awesome questions. Thank you so much, Dr. Wong and Michelle, for coming here today. We're so glad to listen to your presentation on pharmaceutical industry. And if anyone has any questions for the guest speakers, please refer to their emails. The slides will be posted on our email and our Facebook page if you want to refer back to it. And lastly, can we just get a round of applause for our guest speakers today?
All right.
Thanks to you guys and this amazing club and the organization of it. Very, very nice.
Yeah, really, we're very impressive, guys.
Yeah, you put us to shame. You put some of our classes to shame.
You guys are pretty impressive. Anyways, hey, thank you guys. Wish you all the best. Hopefully, if you want some of you guys to go to USC PharmD program, if you guys do, or even if you don't, and you guys have questions about the industry in the future, please reach out and say hello. Tell me that you were at UCI and we met here. We'd love to connect with you guys in the future.
Yeah, right? Same here. Hope to see you guys again down the roads, and good luck, you know, with the rest of your schooling at UCI. And yeah, please keep in touch. Okay.
Right.
Yes. Before you go, could we get a quick group picture actually?
Oh heck yeah.
Just to make sure everyone's prepared and no one's looking on the side or something, because I always look weird if we take screenshots without alerting us beforehand. So yeah, Chantel, whenever you're ready, take the screenshot. Go ahead and count down.
Okay. 3,
2, 1. Okay, one more. 3, 2, 1. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Have
So
a great
fun.
one. Wish you guys all the very best.
All right. Take care, guys. Stay
you.
safe.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Have a
All
great
right.
night.
Good luck.